Hey guys, I wanted to explain the difference between absolute and relative risk today in this video and why that can be deceiving whenever you see it in articles and newspapers and headlines and abstracts and the main takeaway of a study. So I was watching Mike the Vegan's video on, it was some vegan response. Anyways, what the point of this was, he presented an article in it, and in the quote in the article, it said there's an 18% increased risk of colorectal cancer when eating processed or red meat. And on the baseline, that looks like an alarming statistic. But this is a relative risk factor, not a absolute risk factor. And I'm going to explain the difference between that and why that can be sensationalist and deceiving in this video. Okay, so in order to understand relative risk, which is what is quoted in the video, that is 19% risk of developing colorectal cancer if you eat processed or red meat. You have to understand absolute risk first. An absolute risk is the likelihood of an event occurring under a specific scenario. So if we were to take, for example, heart disease, what is the likelihood of somebody developing heart disease if they are 80 years old? So age would be our factor here. And if we were to, for example, say there is a 10% likelihood of someone developing heart disease if they are 80 years old, we would say, okay, they have a 1 in 10 chance of getting heart disease if they're 80 years old, or a 10% chance. That is an example of an absolute risk factor. Relative risk is measured by comparing one group of people to another group of people. So in this example of meat eaters versus non-meat eaters or vegetarians, the consumption of meat showed an 18% increased risk of colon cancer. So in order to understand relative risk, you must know the absolute risk. So in this case, in meat eaters versus vegetarians, or people who did not eat processed meat, there was an 18% increase risk of getting colon cancer for the meat eaters. But this is a relative risk. Okay, so knowing the absolute risk will let you know what this relative risk means. So if the absolute risk of people who do not eat meat at all, so this is the non-meat eaters, vegetarians, is 5.6%. That means 56 people out of 1,000 people would get colon cancer even if they did not eat meat. If that risk factor, that 5.6% risk factor, is increased by a whole 18%, which is those people that eat meat, if that is increased to 18%, then only 66 out of 1,000 people who eat processed meat in that 25 grams daily will develop colon cancer. So it goes from 56 people out of 1,000 to 66 people out of 1,000 that are going to develop colorectal cancer because they ate processed meat, as opposed measuring them to the 56 people that still would have got colon cancer even if they didn't eat processed meat. Okay, as you can see, these results are minimal at best. This barely changes your risk for colon cancer, but if you were just to read that headline, 18% increase, oh my God, like that's pretty astounding. But no, it's only another 10 people out of 1,000, and to me, that isn't that great. Also in the same article, it says, in quote, a number of foods were associated with lower risk of colon cancer, including high fiber selections such as bread and breakfast cereals. This means for the average person, if they're eating bread and breakfast cereals along with red meat, that also mitigates your risk a little bit. So so how much can you actually take away from this study? I don't really know. And yeah, this is not an attack on Mick or Mike the Vegan. This is just saying, look, you have to look at relative risk and absolute risk when you're putting out these numbers like this. And it is very, very, very disingenuous to put a number like 18% out there anytime without explaining the absolute risk that goes along with it. And this is standard and commonplace in research, but it absolutely bothers me because, in my opinion, what is the purpose of research and putting out these sensationalist headlines when the general public or somebody who doesn't know this can't interpret them in the proper way? So this isn't an attack on anybody. This is an attack on, I guess, how research is presented in general. If you're going to say this number, this relative risk, please include the absolute risk with it and explain the differences between absolute and relative risk, because it's disingenuous to do this. And yeah, so I guess now if you know that, you can make better informed decisions for yourself when you're interpreting research. Always look to see if it's presenting you with the absolute risk and the relative risk whenever you're looking and interpreting research articles or just newspaper articles or online, magazines or some article you see online. Definitely do that. And yeah, so I'm going to link below Mick the Vegan's video. It's at 1:52 where he puts that one article up. This is really not even attack on the video or anything itself. It was just that part of the article is highlighted, and it's kind of deceiving if you just read that 19%. So that 1:52 in Mick the Vegan's video, that article, I found it. The one he links below is not available on Harvard's site, so I linked another one that is talking about that article. Also, if you want a diagram explaining the differences between absolute and relative risk, it really helped clarify this for me too, because I just couldn't actually believe that statistic. So yeah, I'm going to link that below as well. If you like my videos, subscribe to me, follow me on Instagram, and I'll be coming out with more medically related videos soon, possibly an interview day video for when I get my interview at Tulane. That's coming up here in January. And sorry if my voice is a little bit weird today. I just got 4 of my wisdom teeth taken out yesterday. So thank you for watching, and yeah, have a great day.